Fast, Furious, and Fiction. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Let me start tonight with a shocker. You know that story of how the U.S. government agents allowed guns to go to the Mexican drug cartel, that scandal that has been catnip for Darrell Issa, the NRA, and the entire American right? Well, according to a new report from Fortune magazine, not The Nation or the New York Times, Fortune. It didn't happen. The U.S. government never used a tactic of letting guns reach the bad guys in Mexico. It just didn't happen, which raises an even bigger question. If it didn't happen, why has Eric Holder and the Obama administration failed to kill the story? Didn't they learn from the swift voting charges against John Kerry that if you don't knock down a story, it knocks you down? Our guests tonight are Matt Miller, former spokesman for the Department of Justice under Attorney General Eric Holder, and MSNBC political analyst David Corn of Mother Jones. So help me out here, Matt. It's great to have you on tonight, by the way. How did I and so many of our viewers and so many people in the country believe for the last 18 months that the United States government was so risk-prone that they sent guns or allowed guns to fall into the hands of the bad guys in Mexico, the cartel people, as a tactic to somehow track them down? According to Fortune, having interviewed a whole bunch of agents at ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, that never happened.
I think there are two things. I think first, the Department of Justice has tried to conduct its investigation in a responsible manner in the way that departments of justice typically do, where they gather the facts, they interview people, and it takes a long time. The AG asked the Inspector General to start investigating this in February of last year. That's still ongoing. And
February of last year,
and it's still ongoing.
Does Eric Holder know there's an election being held, and this is one of the issues?
Well, the Department of Justice doesn't take those things into consideration, and for better or for worse. But what happens is the Inspector General is investigating, and that takes some time. The other thing is...
Okay, I don't like that answer, okay?
I can tell.
18 months of messing around. The Fortune magazine blockbuster says House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa's investigation is built on lies. It reads, quote, there's a fundamental misconception at the heart of the Fast and Furious scandal. Nobody disputes that suspected straw purchasers under surveillance by the ATF repeatedly bought guns that eventually fell into criminal hands. Issa and others charge, however, that the ATF intentionally allowed guns to walk, that's the term of art, as an operational tactic. But 5 law enforcement agents directly involved in the Fast and Furious effort tell Fortune that the ATF had no such tactic. They insist they never purposely allowed guns to be illegally trafficked, just the opposite. They say they seized weapons wherever they could, but were hamstrung by prosecutors and weak laws, which stymied them at every turn. Now, this is part of the malarkey about this. The Second Amendment fanatics out there say you can't stop trafficking and even semi-automatic weapons going to drug dealers. You can't do it.
Right.
David, get in here. Let me get your take on this. How did we all believe for 18 months that the ATF was stupid enough to allow guns to go to the drug dealers?
Well, to begin with, there's nothing nuttier in American politics than gun politics. Democrats run to the hills when when issues involving guns comes into the political debate. And also, ATF is a dysfunctional agency. And I don't say that the way Darrell Issa says it. I say it because it's always the target of conservative attacks. This agency, which is supposed to do something about guns going to Mexico, is hampered by budgetary restrictions placed on it by Republicans who are basically doing the bidding of the NRA, which hates this agency. So this is the only law enforcement agency on the books that is despised and targeted again and again by the right, conservatives and Republicans, and thus it throws everything out of kilter. You go after the ATF, the Justice Department doesn't know how to respond. Gun politics puts the White House on the defensive, and we don't talk about the policy issues, and we get lost in this blizzard.
I agree with that. Let's get back to the focus here. Did the United States government ever let guns move down into Mexico, into the cartels, and eventually allow people to get killed as a way of tracking those cartels?
Yes.
Did they ever do that?
Yeah, they did. One of the things that's come out...
They did allow them to do it?
Under the
so the Fortune magazine article is wrong?
Well, no, they didn't. It appears in the Fortune magazine article it didn't happen in Fast and Furious. It happened in several other operations. One that started under the Bush administration that Attorney General Mukasey was briefed about, something called Wide Receiver that Darrell Issa never never talks about. And then it happened in another smaller operation.
But it didn't happen under the watch of Eric Holder.
It happened in another smaller operation. I don't think we know if the guns made it to Mexico or not.
Did it happen under Holder's watch, under Obama's watch?
It happened. There's one case that's mentioned in the story where guns were allowed to be tracked, ironically, by one of the whistleblowers who's then complained about gun blocking in other cases. Yeah, Dobson, that's right.
Well, let me clarify this up to me. No one's charged that the United States government went out and bought guns and gave them to these straw buyers and allowed them to go into Mexico, did they? Has anybody charged that we actually made it?
ISA has.
You're saying that we paid for the guns?
I don't know if he says his charges have shifted many times, but yeah, many of the Republicans on the Hill have said that we've actually paid for the guns, or U.S. taxpayers funds were used, and other times they've just said that we let all the guns walk. I mean, you have to remember where this comes from. There is a conspiracy theory on the right that the administration did this intentionally to drum up support for gun control.
But that's crazy.
Of course, it's crazy. But people believe it. Darrell Issa said it again this Sunday.
Just so our viewers, I'd like to get the facts first, then the analysis, and then the opinion. Let's start with the facts. Did the United States government in Fast and Furious, the campaign being run by this administration, did they allow guns to go into Mexico that could have been used to kill people?
According to the Fortune magazine piece, no. But the Inspector General has not yet finished the report, and I don't think we'll know for sure until that's done.
When do you think he might get around to finishing this report?
It's been reported that it'll happen sometime in the next few months.
And it's been going on since February 2011.
That's right.
Jesus. Excuse me. I don't like to use bad words. Look, do you really think that's okay?
I think that's how long it takes to do these reports. It
takes 2 seconds to make a charge, and it takes a year and a half.
Well, that's the problem. But they don't work under.
Darrell Issa knows that, and he's been going after the administration and every which way he can. And the thing is, he's mad because he says,
"How about innocent until proven guilty?" How about saying we don't know that's true? Why do you allow it to look like it might be true? Why don't they just deny it?
Well, they did deny it early, and then they found. And what happened is that when they went and looked at it, they found conflicting allegations. So you have some people in the ATF that say it happened. You have others that say it didn't happen.
I mean,
it takes a while to sort it out.
There's some people in the ATF and the United States government who say that under this administration, under its campaign of Fast and Furious, they were sending guns into Mexico, hoping to somehow trap somebody. By the way, I don't even know how that traps anybody.
That's right.
Anyway, because it's legal to buy the guns in this country. Anyway, the NRA and Darrell Issa, they are, of course, working together on this, say the Fast and Furious operation is a White House conspiracy to crack down on gun rights here in the U.S. Here's Issa on Fox in December. Let's listen.
Very clearly, they made a crisis, and they're using this crisis to somehow take away or limit people's Second Amendment rights.
Absolute pandering there. Absolute crazy pandering. Gun nut pandering. The conspiracy theory cooked up by Issa and the NRA is so far-fetched that Stephen Colbert laid bare the insanity with this explanation. Let's listen.
Very clearly, they made a crisis, and they're using this crisis to somehow take away or limit people's Second Amendment right.
Yes, very clearly. Obama started this gun tracking program in 2006 when he hypnotized George Bush. Then he secretly ordered Attorney General Holder to order the Justice Department to order the ATF to order gun shops to sell guns to Mexican drug cartels and then lose track of them, thereby panicking Americans to gin up support for the draconian gun control measures that Obama has never introduced.
Can't say it better myself. Even House Speaker John Boehner won't support this conspiracy nutcase stuff. Today he was asked about evidence for ISIS's assertion that Fast and Furious was all a plot to create a gun control initiative here in the States. Let's listen.
I've never indicated that that was the case. I don't know whether that's the case because we don't have the documents.
You know, you're laughing because you think it's funny, but here's a guy, a sane conservative, Boehner. He's sane, having to deal with people who are not.
But at the same time, he won't shoot it down. He says, I don't know.
He'll be defeated if he does.
Of course. Listen, the big issue here is that they say they're upset that the U.S. government sent guns to Mexico. Actually, the problem is that there are lots of guns going to Mexico. This isn't a ginned-up crisis, as Darrell Issa says. It's a tremendous crisis. The tens of thousands of guns a year, if not hundreds of thousands, are flowing from the United States to Mexico, arming the drug cartels there. They're killing sometimes Americans in the border regions, but it's a tremendous surge of violence. And it's legal because the Republicans and the NRA prevent any laws or regulations from going to...
You've worked there. Let me explain this, because what I've been able to read from the Fortune piece, which is well-written piece, You can go to Phoenix right now. There are over 800 gun shops that legally sell semi-automatic rifles down there. Any kid, 18 years old, can walk into the store, buy 20 of them, walk down the street, sell them to somebody who's going to Mexico, working for the cartels. All legal, because there's nothing wrong with selling to somebody else once you buy. If you held the gun for 5 minutes, you're allowed to own it, and then sell it 5 minutes later to anybody you want to. All legally, semi-automatic weapons, they go right down to the cartels.
Right, that's right. And when the administration proposed, just to illustrate how crazy things have gotten, when they proposed that just the sale of those guns be tracked, when someone went in and bought multiple assault rifles and other what are called long guns.
They're discounted.
That's right. The NRA went crazy about it. House Republicans went crazy about it, and they voted to block it. It didn't go anywhere in the Senate, but just the tracking of that was opposed.
Final point. Not only is this story apparently not true, in fact, apparently it's fictional that we're encouraging guns to go down there so we could track them. And this conspiracy theory that was all an attempt by the establishment, the bad guys in Washington, to track down your guns at home wherever you happen to have a semi-automatic. The politics of this, it's on display now. David, you start on this. It looks like 30-plus Democrats in the House of Representatives will now vote for a charge of criminal contempt of Congress against the Attorney General, not because they believe in the merits of the case, because the NRA has listed this as one of those votes that decides whether you're pro or against guns.
Yeah, as you know, there are a bunch of Democrats who support gun rights, but more importantly, are scared of the NRA back in their own district.
In West Virginia and in Utah and places like that.
For good reason. And here comes the NRA saying, this isn't a gun rights issue, but they're going to make it a gun right issue. So Democrats are going to be put in a box, and it's going to give some form of bipartisan cover. So tomorrow, Dara Issa will be crowing.
Look, I think
this is a bipartisan effort against Eric Holder.
The right thing about this is there are a lot of Democrats in the NRA. This is a partisan move. This is to help the Republicans, not to help the gun owners. Anyway, thank you. And I'm saying this to the NRA. You guys are working for the Republicans now, and you're not supposed to do that. Anyway, thank you, Matt Miller.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you. It's a complicated case here. Tell them to move their asses over there anyway. Come in, David Corn. Thank you.